Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. And welcome to a question that I guess I've received in various forms, but in yesterday's reading, it became evident that it was time to address it. This is the question for people who feel like they're getting to a place where something's got to give, something's got to change. Some of you have said, I feel like I'm done. I feel like this needs to end, and now I just want to figure out how to get my person's energy to kind of dissipate, go away from me, that sort of thing. How do I move on? What do I do? Do I write them a letter? Do I make a stand? Do I return their complete silence? What's the best course of action? So we're going to take a look at kind of the environment of the relationship, and then which we saw a little bit of this yesterday. So no question as to why there might be some of this feeling out there, but then also that feeling of, so how do you address it? What exactly do you do? How do you move on from that? It will be a general reading. So it'll be a general reading for this collective. So if it resonates with you, then that means you may be part of this collective. You may want to take a look at some of the other messages that are out there. And you may want to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. So we're going to start out by looking at the energetic and emotional backdrop. That is generally where I like to start with our readings. So general emotional backdrop. Oh, and I dropped a card in a place that's going to be difficult to pull it out. So hang with me for just 1 second. Okay. And it wants to be out here. Okay. Wow, that was like a playing hard to get kind of card there. And an interesting one too, because it's all about that third party energy. It's all about the third party energy. And it seems like, I've never noticed this, or I've never said anything about this before, but what really sticks out to me is that they're all kind of facing away. They're all kind of, it doesn't feel like this is a group that you're necessarily included in when you look into this third party energy. So it feels like even and it's going to be true in your person's life if they've got a third party situation going on, but it feels like even in your own life there's a little bit of a feeling of, I don't know, not being involved even in places where you're involved, or not feeling like you're as connected even in places where you are involved and you're one of the people in the situation. Interesting. I don't think that's ever shown up to me in that card before, and it's super weird that it like disappeared and said you have to come find this card, and I usually would turn the camera off for something weird like that, but in this case I didn't feel like I should, so I'm kind of sorry about that, but it was part of the mood. So we've got the movement of pentacles. This is not, something has slowed to a halt. Something that was already not moving very quickly has slowed to a halt and turned into something that is no longer fruitful, no longer, and this could be something else in your life that is reflecting in your soulmate situation also, or it could be your soulmate situation, or in some cases it's going to be, I'm just going to put this out there, I'm sure it'll rub somebody the wrong way, and that's not what I mean, but it may be that you're already in a pretty unforgiving mood, and that this is just writing something off. You may wake up tomorrow and say, oh, okay, you know what, maybe I was a little bit too hard on that. But it feels like there is an element here of you not receiving what you're worth. And so you may wake up tomorrow and say, I'm a little bit more calm about this, but it doesn't necessarily change the fact that you aren't getting your what you're supposed to be owed in this situation. There is a sense of something not quite being equal or even there. Um, there is a lot of love, and a lot of an ability to be positive in you. So if it's like, if even if you are in this mood where you're feeling like I'm just going to write this whole thing off, even if you kind of secretly know that you're going to wake up tomorrow and feel like you don't really want to write it off, you're responding to something that's real, I guess I want to say. You're responding to something that's real with the Six of Pentacles here in the reverse. And you're not even necessarily that far off. If it feels like maybe you're throwing a little bit of a fit, look more closely at it, because it feels like that fit may be more legitimate and justified than it looks at first glance. So this 10 of Cups is about you knowing how to look at things. It's more of an honorable mention, so it's not going to come out in this, it's not going to be in this part of the reading. But yeah, you know what? This is, you better listen to yourself here. It feels like there's something that, it's like a joke that isn't really a joke, or a mood that feels like it's, you're lashing out, but it's not really off kilter. It's really, something's off balance and you're just calling it like you see it. And for once you just have removed the filter, I guess, between yourself and the way that you usually see this. Yeah, you're not getting mired in the overthinking, and you're not really getting confused about what the options are out there. This is like one of those days where sometimes you look back at a situation and you say, wow, if I were the person then that I am now, that situation would have gone very differently. This is you being in the situation, being the person you are now, essentially, and saying, okay, you know what, this is going to go very differently. It's not even adversarial. It's just, I'm not really going to do something. And it's huge. It's a big difference for you. It allows you to set down something that you've been carrying. We've been seeing a lot of evidence of this in previous readings, and in fact it came out in your focus areas yesterday on YouTube, and then it showed up again when we got to you on the Vimeo extended. So there's that sense of needing to set some things down that you are carrying as a responsibility, but that they're creating a burden, and yet you're not really in a place to truly influence those or change them. So it's a burden that it doesn't make much sense for you to carry. Well, I get the sense you know that, and you're setting some of it down, and it constitutes the end of a cycle for you. This is victorious. This is like Six of Wands material here. I don't know if we get the Six of Wands for this, but that's what it feels like. It's victory after a long battle. This is a huge piece of self-worth that you are laying down right here. It is exactly what I'd like to see for you. I know it's coming from a place of frustration and maybe a little bit of anger in some cases, but it is really kind of, yes, things aren't passing judgment. Things are not okay, and you are just okay with acknowledging that. Things are not okay. You have been released from something, and you have developed, this is like major arcana party over here, and you have developed or located some kind of wisdom. I feel like it's located wisdom within yourself, but something that has overturned this devil energy, something you have now seen can't be unseen. There is a trust within you that's that Seven of Swords in reverse kind of trust. There is a victorious feeling, which I already mentioned, that Six of Wands in the upright. I'm like speaking in tarot at you now, because I feel like you guys, in some cases, you've spent enough time around it that you know what those cards are. But even though they're not here, I can feel them, you know. And yet there's what's really happening is this buck stops here kind of feeling. I will not move forward with this. I cannot unsee this. This is all over this reading. What cannot be unseen, but it changes things. It ends a cycle. It overturns this devil energy, and it's a wisdom that creates a new perspective for you. There's a lot of positivity in this. I'm very happy to see this energy blossoming here for you. And this is in your energetic backdrop. Here's the thing though. If this is in your energetic backdrop, then it means it's impacting your person too. So I'm curious to understand kind of what that means, because what we're looking at here is you saying, you know what, I'm feeling like I may need to move on. I may need to do something different. Here, there's definitely that energy. It's that Queen of Swords energy that we saw come out in the, again, with the extended reading yesterday. The extended reading kind of drove it home as far as what the perspective is from you, for you. It also did a pretty good job of talking about what was happening with your person. And I think that's kind of what we want to look at next here, is get a little bit into this relationship that you're looking at and saying, I know that you may still be making progress, but it's too slow and I'm not going to hang around for it. Let's take a look at the progress. Let's take a look at that relationship that you may be saying that about or feeling the frustration about. So it's got that Page of Swords kind of feeling to it. This is a first time experience for both of you. I would give it that. It's got that feeling of, not necessarily newness in this, but something that has not become, it has patterns in it all over the place, but some of those patterns were created within this relationship. It even represents patterns that both of you have experienced in the past. Certainly for you, you've got somebody coming in and generating experiences like what you've had in the past. There's a lot of inspiration that happens with this relationship. That's part of what's happening here as well. There is actually a feel of the two of you are doing it now. You're inspiring each other a little bit even now. Their energy is inspiring you to feel a little bit more like what we're seeing over here in this energy. And you're, so this is a little bit complicated. What I'm seeing here is that the relationship is what's giving you the gusto to want to walk away from the relationship. Like the energy itself is coming from the union. We've got an Ace of Swords. There's a truth that doesn't want to be answered and a crossroads that you guys are at. So something does have to happen, regardless of the fact that this relationship seems to be what's granting you, and your response to this relationship, the energy that comes to you from this relationship is what's generating the ability in you to have this new growth and to walk away. Like this is a step in your healing. But there's still this crossroads that both of you get put at. They're at a crossroads too. I'm not sure how they're going to handle that, because there is a sense in this relationship of not necessarily always focusing on what the real truth is. And this is something that happens on both sides. And the thing is, it's not always like denial of truth either. Sometimes it's just a matter of I'm not focusing on what the truth is. And we see that that is evidenced by the feeling in this star and the sun too, because if you guys were to strip it away and just say, how do you make each other feel when you're together? There's going to be this sense of this bond that is very real and that is very constant. Then there's going to be this sense of the happiness that they create. And then there's this silence that comes out of it. There's a new perspective as well, but it's not going to be part of this part of the reading, or I don't think that's the next card that comes up. Doesn't feel right. It'll come back if it's supposed to. So this is that feeling of like it's a destiny feeling. That's what really comes out with the star card, and it's in the upright. It's destiny. It's hope. And with the sun here, it's coming out with happiness, and the two of you together generate this, and it's like an engine that generates additional energy, but part of what it's generating right now is the ability to walk away. So that's pretty significant as far as not necessarily, it's something that you should be getting from this, but it feels a little bit strange because it's the relationship that is helping you to generate that energy. But it's part of your healing. It's part of what you have to do to move forward, is to generate that, okay, I need to take the next step energy, even if it's not completely walking away, because we'll get in a minute what your actual advice is with regard to that. But I can totally see why you want to. And it turns out that impetus is, and the ability to do so is coming from within the relationship. But with it being so quiet like this, that's also kind of, it's almost pushing you to have to do something about it. And the thing is, you're somebody who knows a thing or two about sitting in discomfort and being aware of the situation, but not necessarily making big changes of it or making big changes to it. And yet you know that you may be being pushed to make some changes to it. And I think that's kind of that's what you're feeling. So we've got the Tower card here. It's all about change. This is tumultuous change. It is significant change. It is going to, in this case, it feels like move you in a direction of healing. And that's going to be a good thing. So you've already been moving toward a direction of healing, but this is actually being able to do a little bit more with that feeling, and actually being able to do what is over here, what's going to show up for you over here. This is a super interesting energy of the relationship itself, because it's like if you just stripped it down of the emotions and said, what is happening right now? This is what I feel like would come out. It is actually pushing you towards the solutions. It's pushing you towards learning about yourself, moving you in a direction where you feel like you have to do something. And this is a little bit going overboard with that. So with the Sky Father, it's like the equivalent of the Emperor card. And yes, it's a feeling of I need to take ownership of the situation, but it's a little bit more control than you might actually have. So keep in mind, that feeling of dropping those 10 pentacles or I'm sorry, those 10 wands, that feeling of setting some of that down that you no longer have to carry. Acknowledge the healing, but don't try to control too much. This may not be a clean break. And when I say it may not be a clean break, I really mean that, because I feel like there's a sense of you and your person being very much connected on the energetic side, even if you do make a very decisive decision to walk away. So you've got this Ace of Cups. This is energy that is not flowing. This is part of the reason why you are probably feeling the need to walk away. But it's actually this, like I said, this relationship is leading you right into being able to do that. That's an honorable mention. Let's see. I feel like there's going to be another card that needs to come out here. But there's really not. This emotion is being cut off. I'd like to know what the emotion is under the surface, and maybe that's what we'll get into when we get into the extended, because right now it really does feel like hard, cold. These are the facts. This is what happened. This relationship is part of what's giving you the opportunity. It's freeing you up, ironically, to set some things down and freeing you up to walk away from this person. But that feels a little bit like maybe the cycle is too tight for me to understand. So I think we need to get into that a little bit more when we get into the extended. Okay, so it's like it's pressing all your buttons. It's pressing all your buttons and making it very difficult for you to walk away, and yet pushing you to a place where even you will agree that you will need to make a change. So that's my question. What does that change look like? We keep using the term walk away. We keep talking about ending this, being done, moving on, Well, what does it look like? One person said, what do I do? Do I write a letter? Do I make a stand? Do I return their complete silence? I thought that was kind of interesting, and they weren't the only person to ask if a letter should be written. So let's get in here and understand a little bit of what that practical advice is. So we feel that need to make a next step. The relationship is actually what's providing the impetus to do that. But let's understand what this looks like. Is it walking away? Is it maybe something that's a little bit less, it feels like, well, I was going to say less decisive. And I'm like, well, it doesn't feel less decisive. But then we got the Queen of Swords coming out here, which could be every bit of that. But it's the same kind of Heart of Swords feeling that we have here. This is about how this person holds you into your emotions so much that even when you get really clear on what you want to do, it's very hard to move forward. So it feels like it's an indecisive sort of energy. And that's the first word that wanted to come out of my mouth here. But really, it's not about that. It's about not making rash decisions. There's a difference between being indecisive and just not making quick, rash decisions. So this is about not making rash decisions. Don't do anything that sounds like going in and making a stand. That pretty much rules out the making a stand part. Okay, so pain is going to fall away here in the near term. Has already started to fall away in some places. You probably can't see it, so it still may feel incredibly painful. You have a lot more of an ability to get in and do something than like an activation energy to really get in there and do something. But the problem is, you see how the horses' heads are moving in two different directions. This is a chariot energy of two different minds. It's not super clear which direction to go. It's like it wants to go a couple different directions. And so you're going to need, you can't go in more than one direction. So you're probably going to not want to make any rash decisions. Once again, comes back to that. Then we've got this High Priestess connecting you, or recommending that you get connected up with your higher power to kind of better understand, for you, what does that mean? What should you be doing? What does it actually mean for you? Please don't make any sudden moves. That's one of the things that comes out here. Not making any sudden moves because it's not decisive enough. So we have the Six of Cups that came out here. This is about moving, getting your mind off of it, getting on to something else. So it feels a little bit like walking away, but it doesn't. When I put this Impala card, the Eight of Wands next to it, it feels very much like it really just kind of feels like redirecting your energy rather than removing your energy. So I feel like that's kind of something that you have to do anyway, because your energy is so much connected with theirs that you aren't necessarily just going to be able to remove it without significant detriment to both of you. However, focusing elsewhere and redirecting all of the energy that you can get away with redirecting may be beneficial. It may feel a little bit like an escape for you. The recommendation is to just take as it's temporary. Take as much of the energy as you're capable of redirecting, and at least for a couple days, go ahead and redirect it. That's going to be part of just resetting yourself. And you need that reset because something is ending and you are in the process of that change. We saw that happening before. This death card for you was coming out in the reverse a lot of times in previous readings, meaning that you were being resistant to a change or there was something that you weren't allowing to happen. So the focus is now in this reading not so much on what you're not allowing to happen, it's more on here's what is happening and you're in the middle of that change. This is the energy that's going to allow you to gracefully go through that change. But by the same token, there may be a little bit of a reluctance to jump into something new because it feels like a lot of energy is being asked of you. You are encouraged to look at the big picture, to recognize what the opportunities are. With the Five of Cups here in the reverse, this is not just about being regretful and sad. It is also about saying, all right, what's actually possible here? What could really happen? And with this Five of Cups, especially with the Queen of Swords in the reverse, it's you being able to recognize the possibilities. Okay, so we've got the Seven of Pentacles, which is a quiet card of investment. It is a card of not necessarily knowing what all is happening underneath the surface, but having some trust in that process. So, you are encouraged to have some trust in your own process and to not necessarily always have to know where everything is coming from. For example, it may bother you or concern you a little bit to know that some of the impetus to be able to walk away is coming from the energy that lives within this relationship. And we can't really get a feel for what the emotions are by looking at this. We'll look into that when we get into the extended, but it's kind of significant that this is the way this plays out, you know, and there is a need to kind of stand back and look at the situation rather than to make a rash call. So no rash decisions, no making a stand. You are allowed to return their silence. That's kind of what comes out here. You are allowed to return their silence, and it might make some good sense to do so, or at least to kind of hold off for a second. You have a new perspective that's coming to you that would change what you would say to them anyway, so you're encouraged to hold off with the Hanged Man there in the reverse and allow that to happen. You're going to end up with a lot of power in this situation, and it's like you're going to need to be able to know how to handle it, what to do with it, what's the right thing to do with it. This Magician card, though, tells me that you're going to be in a position of power and that you'll have to kind of just be careful. Make sure that you do this correctly. Make sure that you do it correctly according to your own opinions. So you're not walking away. You're leaving the door open. You're not making a stand. I mean, you can focus on, you're encouraged to focus elsewhere, but not to actually walk away. You're encouraged to not make a stand. You're allowed to return their complete silence. This Three of Cups in the reverse here, though, this is really more about recognizing what's happening directly in front of you, maybe doing something about that. But I don't get a lot of clarity on what that is. I do get the idea that it's not going to be a bad thing. Yeah, I definitely get the sense that you're not headed in a bad place. You're just headed in a place that's a little bit, it's cleansing your perspective. I feel like that came up yesterday too. It's about finding that cleaner, new perspective, but doing so with a totally clean conscience because you're not doing anything rash. You're not jumping into something. And again, it's the energy of this relationship and of you guys being so close together that's really allowing you to do what you're doing in this relationship so far and giving you that energy, imbuing you with that energy to be able to make whatever this move is. But again, this move is not recommended to be a rash move. You're not even necessarily recommended to walk away or move on. Just refocus your energy right now. Just turn away. Turn away, completely ignore this. You're going to continue getting energy from this. But you don't need to do anything in your person's direction right now. You're not even encouraged to communicate, or like one person was saying, to make a stand. Let's get into the emotions of this a little bit more deeply, because we see that the emotions are kind of tied off like a tourniquet, but what is really under the surface here? So that'll be under the surface, not necessarily something that your person would be able to feel, or that you might even be able to feel, but that's what we're going to get into in the extended. If you'd like to go there, the link will be down below. Otherwise, I will see you again in tomorrow's reading, where we will start to look at, we need to do a refresh for the month of August.